welcome all y'all to the State Fair. You know, imagine if we were sitting here 250 years ago in 1775, and what might those people have seen here, those South Carolinians at the time, at the beginning of our American Revolution? Well, there wouldn't be any Ferris wheels, probably not nearly as much good food, and you'd have a wide variety of people here who came to be part of South Carolina from a wide, diverse group of places. So some of them came from the Low Country, that came from Barbados and other parts of the Caribbean on boats, both the planters themselves, enslaved people with them. Some people came from Britain and other parts of Europe on ships and by other means to get here. A whole bunch of people came here on ships other ways, from the Middle Passage, from West Africa. And then a lot of people started to migrate down here, and right before the Revolution, from other colonies, from Virginia and Pennsylvania and other wings, down the Wagon Road, and that was the bulk of the people here in the Midlands. But as all of these people came together to be part of the fabric of society in 1775 in South Carolina, they were about to be faced with a choice. Do we stay with our King George III in Great Britain and his rule and Parliament and others, or do we make a shift and change to go to a different government based on some choices? Well, we know what happened. We made choices. People in South Carolina made a lot of choices, in both directions. And the war started in Massachusetts, and it had started before what would have been this day in 1775. And it was brought to a head in the beginnings of South Carolina in a variety of things, and really in Charleston in 1776 in the Battle of Sullivan's Island. But it really came to the fore in 1780 and 81 and 82 with a great move in the Southern strategy, where Great Britain decided they were going to excise South Carolina and Georgia away from the other colonies and turn this, what had been the richest colony of the 28 colonies in North America, the richest colony, South Carolina, and make that part of a separate portion of Great Britain. Excise away in Massachusetts and New York and other parts up in the middle Atlantic and north. Because the belief is that this was a lucrative place to have. Loyalists would reign here, and we would keep this as part of Great Britain. Well, that erupted into what we call the Southern Campaign, and the war that turned the end of the war, which was fought and won right here in South Carolina by many of our ancestors and others who came to be part of the fight here. It wasn't easy, as wars are never easy. It wasn't short, as wars are rarely short. In fact, it was terribly bloody and long, and it essentially became a civil war between citizens here in South Carolina, making their choices and deciding. But ultimately, and our friend Sam Newell here, representing His Majesty's United Kingdom Consulate from Atlanta, our friends from Great Britain, well understand that when you get groups of people who have come from like backgrounds who suddenly decide they're going to split, it in fact becomes a terrible, oftentimes tragic loss of life. But at the end of the day, what resulted from it, a seminal turning point in the history of the world, was the United States of America. One right here in South Carolina. Through blood, sweat, tears, turmoil, and you can tell people that I talk to all the time, they always clap. But it was one right here in South Carolina as we chased Lord Cornwallis and others out because he said, I can't beat Carolina. And went to Virginia, hemmed in by the French Navy and beaten by the French and American armies, surrendered, and the war went on here in South Carolina for a couple more years till the British evacuated in 1782. The treaty in 1783, and with one minor exception about 20-some years later, we've been the fastest of friends ever since, united allies in partnership from across the Atlantic in this unique relationship. And so it's extraordinarily important that here in 2025, at the beginnings of the 250th celebration of the American Revolution, we got to look at this in the broad spectrum of history. And in fact, celebrate and commemorate the actions that happened 250 years ago, but perhaps more, or even, well, certainly more importantly than that, is take the lessons learned from that time, everything this grand experiment has created in the 250 years hence, and here in 2025, and what will be the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence next July the 4th, and commit ourselves to the future of the grand experiment, to be part of the United States of America, this great citizenship opportunity each of us have, no matter where you came from or when you got here, and certainly in South Carolina, to remember that it was one right here to cement the blessings of liberty today, tomorrow, and into perpetuity on behalf of us all. So thank you.